Wednesday, the 7th of July. Well, my question to you today is, what do these following things have in common? So let's go. Smoke signals, drums, flags, letters, telegraphs, pigeon carriers, Morse code, phones which were party lines, phones which were landlines, phones, mobile, texting, Skype, FaceTime, video calls, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, and. The list still goes on. I was just smiling to myself because I vaguely remember it's there just at the back of my mind. My mum and dad had a party line when the telephone got put into the house with a neighbour across the road. And I just when I read that there, it just brought back those memories of that. And mobile phones, well, the company I used to work for, we had a mobile phone that I had to use, and oh my goodness, it really was a brick. It was a huge thing, but that's when they really were first coming out. What do they have in common? Well, they're all forms of communication. And communicating, well, communicating is good. It really, really is. Now, last week and then sometime last year, we talked about trees communicating. But we can all communicate through our voice. And depending on how you say it, well, it can mean something completely different. So let's try a very short word. Hi. Or hi. I think there's a difference there immediately. We can communicate with our bodies. Arms crossed. You know, they all say that's towards something off, or you're not happy about something. But arms crossed, I must admit, I do find that comfortable. I don't think I'm warding anything off. So arms crossed is supposed to communicate something. Your hand under your chin means that you're concentrating and interested in a particular subject that someone is talking about or that you're listening to. So, interesting. What else do we have here? Sitting either slouched or sitting upright. Is that paying attention? Is that bored? Or is that just who we are? Pointing your finger. Pointing your finger. That's a no-no nowadays. It's just a no-no. However, sometimes we use it to describe something or point to a direction or go But pointing is a no-no nowadays. We can nod or shake our heads. Well, that certainly tells you what you're wanting to know there. Tapping your foot. Oh yes, that's a sign of impatience, isn't it? Well, to me, I'm usually tapping my foot, just maybe along to music or something that's going on in my head. What about eyes rolling? We've all done that, haven't we? When someone said or done something that you don't really agree with or is maybe a bit foolhardy, you just think, that speaks volumes. The other one is winking. There we go, a wee wink to you. I think we communicate to other people in many ways, and I think we also communicate in many ways we know nothing about. Other people can see it and pick it up, but we ourselves are unaware of it. So there is loads going on in the communicating of ourselves to others. Now, I'm sure most of you by now will have heard of the term Zoom. Oh yes, Zoom is the word of the moment in communication. It was around before the COVID pandemic, but not to a great extent. It wasn't used as anywhere near what it is used at present. And I was going to talk to you about Zoom today, but I looked up Zoom just so I knew what I was talking about. And Zoom's founder was a chap called Eric Yuan. And he had come up with a name for Zoom when he was putting it together, and he wanted to call it SASPy. And when the investors and the programmers and everything got together, a gentleman called Jim Scheinman, he said, can you really think people are going to say, oh, I'm going to SASPy somebody? He says, it doesn't quite sound right, does it? So he was asked to give 3 selections as to what they could call Zoom. So Zoom, of course, was one of the names. And people have asked him, where did you get that name from? And in fact, it was a children's book that he had been reading to his children one night called Zoom City. And he thought it was just a very quick word, a very active word. And that was one of the suggestions which the founder, Eric Wan, decided he liked. Hence, we now have Zoom. So, Zoom. The church, our church, East and Old, pay a yearly annual licence fee to use the Zoom programme. And that means we can have numerous people involved in it. It also means that we don't get cut off after 45 minutes. It can last whenever we're speaking to people for as long as we require it to do that. However, there are lots of additional packages that you can get to add on to Zoom. So the more that you want Zoom to do, then the more you have to pay for your annual fee. But we pay for the basic package, which I think is about I can't remember. I think it's about £140 annually. So we pay that because it has helped us a great deal, especially during this pandemic and especially the lockdown. So where would we have been without Zoom or platforms like it? Because there's Teams, I think there's one called Jitsi, I think it is. Anyway, where would we be without all of these platforms for us to communicate with each other during lockdown? Well, some of the things that we have done since Zoom came into effect in our lives has been, we've held the Christingle service, we've held worship services, songs of praise, quiz night, meetings, and more meetings, from kirk session to groups, to one-to-one meetings with elders, with members. We've held our stated annual meeting on Zoom twice now, meetings with outside groups, Zoom to the music, which of course is the Music Cafe, and also the Wee Blether, where you have to, of course, bring your own tea and coffee and your own tasty bite. The book club, well, they have met, our church book club has met every month with Zoom. I personally and others through the Zoom have attended conferences, webinars. I've talked to couples about their weddings over Zoom. We've talked to couples about baptisms, but also funerals as well. And it does so much more than that. You can actually record something that you're doing, whether it be a conference or a discussion, and then those who were unable to make it, you can then send that recording to them so that they know what happened and who said what and what the outcomes were. We have also had a few get-togethers with our good friends in Zuglo Church. We've held a Bible study together. We've had a chat about some bioethics discussions, subjects. And of course, we'll also have a general chit-chat and catch up about what's been happening. So it's great that we've been able to keep in contact with our friends in Zuglo. Now, the reason I decided to talk about Zoom and communications to you today is that last week we had a Zoom chat, a Zoom meeting, a Zoom conference, whatever you want to call it. Well, we called it a Zoom reunion with our friends in Dubendorf Church, linked with Schwarzenbach Church in just outside Zurich. It was billed as a reunion and it was a success, which we're delighted with. We invited, on our side, we invited people who had been to Switzerland, and that was in 2018, believe it or not. And also the Swiss invited people who had been over here in 2018 also. So of course some couldn't make it, but there was quite a few who did. So it was lovely just to see their faces, hear their voices, have a little reminiscence and chat together. I put together a PowerPoint of some of the highlights from their time here and also some of our highlights when we were over there. And the photographs brought back lots of different memories also. We also introduced our friends from Switzerland to some Scottish songs. We had a local song about Forfar, and then we also had a song about midges, the dreaded midges. So we had a lovely time and it was a success, and we hope that we will be able to meet again. Well, we are going to meet again with our friends from Zuglo Church on Zoom, and also hopefully our friends from Switzerland also. So communication has come a very, very long way over the years. And who would have thought it was so easy to speak to people so far away across many countries and continents, as though they were literally in the next room to us. I think it's just absolutely amazing, amazing. So I think we need to thank God that we have each other, that we have friends at home here in Scotland, and we have friends further afield, but also not only in Britain, but in places like Hungary and Switzerland and further afield, that we can rely on, that they are there for us and we are there for them. And it was great just to be able to discuss what we've done, and that's all very superficial, but it was also giving us a chance to share our faith with each other and discuss any differences within our faith cultures also, and also our own cultures in this land. So communicating is great. And I just want to say thank you, God. Thank you, God, for all the forms of communication that you have given us over all of these years, but especially now in the lockdown.